Hello, friends. For tonight's bedtime story, we'll follow Maya as she begins her day at a small village bakery on a quiet winter morning. Get comfortable, take a slow breath, and let's begin. The alarm goes off at 4 in the morning, but Maya is already awake. She's been awake for a few minutes, lying in the darkness of her small apartment, listening to the silence of the village outside her window. This is her favorite time of day, these quiet moments before the world stirs, before obligation becomes urgency. She reaches over and turns off the alarm before it can shatter the peace completely. The room is cold. Winter has settled into the mountains, and even with the radiator humming softly in the corner, the air holds a chill that makes her reluctant to leave the warmth of her blankets. But she doesn't hesitate long. This is the life she chose 3 years ago when she left the city and bought the bakery. Early mornings, flour dust, and the particular satisfaction of making something with her own hands. She rises slowly, wrapping herself in the thick robe she keeps draped over the chair beside her bed. The floorboards are cold beneath her feet as she moves through the apartment, turning on lights as she goes. Everything is small here, compact. A kitchen barely big enough for one person, a bathroom with a shower that never quite gets hot enough, a living room that doubles as her dining room. But it's hers, and after years of sharing walls with strangers in cramped city apartments, the solitude feels like luxury. She makes coffee first. The grinder's noise seems obscenely loud in the pre-dawn quiet, but she doesn't care. The smell of the grounds is rich and dark and promising. She measures water into the machine, watches it drip slowly into the carafe, breathing in the aroma as it fills the small kitchen. A soft weight lands on the counter beside her. Olive, her grey tabby cat, stretches luxuriously and yawns, showing all her teeth. She's been curled up on Maya's bed, but has decided that if Maya is awake, she should be fed. "Good morning to you too," Maya says, scratching behind Olive's ears. The cat purrs, leaning into her hand, then meows pointedly at her empty food bowl. Maya fills Olive's bowl with kibble and refreshes her water. The cat eats with single-minded focus while Maya drinks her coffee, both of them comfortable in the quiet morning routine they've shared for the past 2 years. While the coffee brews, she dresses in layers, thermal leggings under her jeans, a long-sleeved shirt, a thick sweater over that. The bakery will be warm once the ovens are going, almost too warm, but the walk through the village is always cold, and the bakery itself takes time to heat in the winter mornings. She pulls thick socks onto her feet, laces up her worn boots, winds a scarf around her neck. The coffee is ready. She pours it into her travel mug, adds a splash of cream, takes that first sip that makes the early morning worthwhile. Heat and caffeine, and the promise of the day ahead. She stands at the kitchen window while she drinks, looking out at the village below. Olive jumps up onto the windowsill beside her, pressing against her arm, and together they watch the dark street. It's still completely dark outside, that deep winter darkness that feels like it might last forever. The street lamps cast small pools of yellow light along the empty road. She can see her breath fogging the window glass. Somewhere in the distance, a dog barks once, then falls silent. Otherwise, nothing. The village sleeps. She finishes half the coffee, leaves the rest for later, and gathers her things. Keys. Wallet. Phone. The cookbook she's been studying, flagged with sticky notes marking recipes she wants to try. She pulls on her heavy coat, wraps a second scarf around her neck for good measure. "Come on, Olive," she says, and the cat hops down from the windowsill, trotting to the door. Olive knows the routine. Bakery means her favorite window seat, warm sun later in the morning, and customers who give her attention. She's never minded the cold walk. Maya scoops Olive into her arms, tucking the cat inside her coat where it's warm. Olive's head pokes out near Maya's collar, ears alert, ready for the adventure. They step out into the winter morning together. The cold hits her immediately, sharp and clean. Her breath plumes white in the darkness. The stars are still visible overhead, hard and bright in the clear sky, though to the east she can see the faintest suggestion of light, the promise of dawn still an hour or more away. The village is absolutely silent. Her footsteps on the cobblestone street are the only sound, echoing softly off the stone buildings on either side. She loves this walk, even in the cold, maybe especially in the cold. Olive's warm weight against her chest makes it even better. The cat's ears twitch at every sound, the distant dog bark, the creak of a shutter, the soft crunch of Maya's boots on frost. The village is beautiful in the winter, the old buildings frosted with ice, the mountains looming dark against the slowly lightening sky. She moved here from the city 3 years ago, on what some of her friends called a whim. But it wasn't a whim. It was a choice. A deliberate decision to trade the noise and chaos and relentless pace of city life for something slower, quieter, more intentional. The bakery had been for sale for months when she found it, the previous owner retiring after 40 years of pre-dawn mornings. It was small, just a storefront with a kitchen in back and a small office that had been converted into a cozy nook. Maya bought it with her savings and a small loan from the bank, found her apartment a few streets away, and she's never regretted it, not even on the coldest mornings, not even when her hands ache from kneading dough or her feet throb from standing on the stone floor all day. The bakery sits on the corner of the main square, a small building with a green awning and a hand-painted sign that says simply, Maya's. She didn't change the name when she bought it. The previous owner's name had been Marie, and the village had been calling it Marie's for so long that changing it seemed pointless. But Marie had insisted, had told her the bakery needed a fresh start, needed to belong to someone new. So Maya's it became. She unlocks the door and steps inside, quickly closing it behind her to keep the cold out. Olive immediately squirms to be let down, and Maya releases her. The cat drops to the floor and immediately begins her morning inspection, sniffing everything, rubbing her face against chair legs, re-establishing her territory. The bakery is dark and only marginally warmer than the street outside. She flips the light switches, and the space comes to life. Warm yellow light filling the small dining area with its handful of mismatched tables and chairs, the glass display case that will soon be filled with the day's offerings, the chalkboard menu on the wall that she updates daily with whatever she's decided to bake. The space smells like flour and sugar and yeast, smells like bread even when there's no bread baking. It's a smell that's sunk into the walls over decades, into the wooden floorboards and the exposed ceiling beams. Maya breathes it in deeply, feeling something in her chest loosen and settle. This is home now, more than her apartment a few streets away, more than anywhere else has ever been. She doesn't linger in the front. The morning's work is waiting in the kitchen. But first, she sets up Olive's space. There's a cushioned window seat by the front window. Maya added it specifically for the cat. She places a soft blanket on it, arranges it just so. Olive will spend most of her day there once the sun comes up, watching the village square like it's her personal television. For now, though, Maya pushes through the swinging door into the kitchen, turning on more lights, firing up the ovens. Olive trots along behind her, winding between her legs as she moves, meowing occasionally as if offering commentary on the morning's plans. She settles on a small rug Maya keeps in the corner, far from the work area, safe from hot ovens and sharp knives, but where she can still watch everything. They're old, these ovens, older than Maya by decades, but they work beautifully once they're hot. She sets them to preheat and turns her attention to the work table. This is where the magic happens, if you can call it magic. Maya thinks of it more as transformation. Flour and water and salt and yeast becoming something more than the sum of their parts, becoming sustenance and comfort and the smell of home. She's been baking since she was a child, standing on a stool beside her grandmother in a kitchen much smaller than this one, learning to knead dough and judge the doneness of bread by the sound it makes when you tap the bottom of the loaf. The dough for today's bread is already made, resting in large covered bins in the walk-in cooler. She made it yesterday afternoon, let it do its first rise, then punched it down and refrigerated it overnight. The cold fermentation gives the bread better flavor, more complex, more depth. She learned that from her grandmother too, though her grandmother probably learned it from her grandmother, knowledge passed down through generations of women who understood that bread is patient, that it rewards waiting. She pulls out the first bin, sets it on the work table. The dough has risen again overnight, even in the cold, though slowly. She peels back the cloth covering it and is greeted by that smell, yeast and fermentation, faintly sour, deeply satisfying. She dusts the work surface with flour and turns the dough out onto it. The dough is soft and slightly sticky, alive under her hands. She divides it into portions, weighing each one to make sure they're equal, then begins to shape them into loaves. This is meditative work, the kind of work that requires attention but doesn't demand thought. Her hands know what to do, folding and turning the dough, creating tension on the surface that will help the loaves hold their shape in the oven. She works steadily, shaping loaf after loaf, placing each one into a proofing basket lined with cloth. When the first batch is shaped, she covers them with a clean towel and moves on to the next bin of dough. This one is for rolls, smaller portions that will bake faster and fill the bakery with their scent by the time the first customers arrive. She shapes these more quickly, rolling each piece under her palm until it's round and smooth, then arranging them on baking sheets lined with parchment paper. The ovens are hot now, their heat filling the kitchen, chasing away the last of the morning chill. Maya checks the temperature, perfect, and slides the first loaves inside. Then she sets a timer and turns her attention to the pastries. The croissant dough is in the cooler too, laminated yesterday with layers of butter folded into the dough over and over until there are hundreds of thin sheets that will puff and separate in the oven's heat, creating those flaky, buttery layers that make a croissant perfect. She rolls the dough out carefully, cuts it into triangles, rolls each triangle from the wide end to the point, curves them slightly into crescents. They go onto another baking sheet and she covers them to proof while she works on the next task. Muffins. She's making blueberry muffins this morning, a simple recipe but one that always sells well. She mixes the batter by hand, folding in frozen blueberries at the last moment so they don't bleed too much color into the pale batter. The muffin tins are already lined with paper cups. She fills each one 2/3 full, working quickly now because the oven space is limited and everything has to be timed just right so that nothing burns while something else is baking. The timer goes off, the first loaves are done. She pulls them out, golden brown, perfect, and the smell that floods the kitchen is so good it makes her slightly dizzy. She sets them on cooling racks and immediately loads the next batch into the oven, then the muffin tins, then starts a third batch of bread. While things bake, she makes the chocolate chip cookie dough. This is her recipe, one she's been perfecting for years, and she's finally got it exactly right. Crispy edges, chewy centers, just the right balance of sweet and salt. She creams butter and sugar together in the big stand mixer, adds eggs and vanilla, then flour and leavening, and finally an obscene amount of chocolate chips. The dough is too soft to bake right now, it needs to chill, So she portions it into balls with a scoop and arranges them on sheet pans, then slides the whole thing into the cooler. The muffins are done. She pulls them out, and their smell mingles with the bread, sweet and fruity and warm. They're perfect, their tops golden and slightly cracked, blueberries bursting purple against the tender crumb. She turns them out of the tins to cool and slides the next batch of bread into the oven. Now the cupcakes. She's making vanilla cupcakes today with chocolate frosting, a classic combination that never goes out of style. The batter comes together quickly. She's made this so many times she could do it in her sleep. And soon the cupcake tins are filled and joining the rotation in the oven. The kitchen is fully warm now, almost hot, and Maya is moving in that smooth rhythm that comes when everything is timed perfectly, when one thing finishes just as another needs to go in, when the work flows like water. She pulls out bread, slides in cookies. Pulls out cupcakes, slides in croissants. Everything smells incredible. Yeast and butter and chocolate and sugar all mingling together into something that makes the whole bakery smell like comfort itself. While the last batch bakes, she starts the coffee. The big commercial machine takes a few minutes to heat up, but once it's ready, she brews pot after pot of the house blend, rich and dark and strong enough to wake the dead. She also sets up the espresso machine, running water through it to warm the lines, checking that everything is working smoothly. The croissants come out last, and they're perfect, golden, flaky, layered beautifully. She sets them on a cooling rack and finally, allows herself to take a breath and look at what she's made. The kitchen is full of bread and pastries, racks and trays covering every surface. Dozens of loaves of bread, their crusts crackling as they cool. Mountains of muffins and cookies, delicate croissants, cupcakes waiting for frosting. She checks the clock, 6:30. She has half an hour before opening, time enough to frost the cupcakes, arrange everything in the display case, make herself another cup of coffee, and maybe eat one of the slightly misshapen muffins that won't go out front. She makes the frosting quickly: butter, cocoa powder, powdered sugar, a splash of vanilla and cream. It comes together silky and rich, and she pipes it onto the cooled cupcakes in generous swirls, then tops each one with a sprinkle of chocolate shavings she keeps in a jar for this purpose. Now comes the part she loves almost as much as the baking itself: arranging the display case. She wipes down the glass shelves and begins filling them, thinking about color and height and composition, creating something that looks abundant and inviting. The breads go on the bottom shelf, their substantial weight anchoring the display. The middle shelves get the pastries and muffins, arranged so their colors play off each other: golden croissants next to purple-studded muffins next to rich chocolate cupcakes. The top shelf is for the cookies, which she arranges in a slightly messy pile that suggests abundance, generosity, the possibility of taking two. She steps back and assesses her work. Perfect. The case looks full and inviting, everything fresh and beautiful. She makes small adjustments, moves a croissant slightly, shifts a loaf until she's satisfied. The last thing she does before opening is make herself an espresso. She's been running on the coffee she made at home, but she wants something stronger now, something to celebrate the morning's work. She pulls a perfect shot, drinks it standing at the counter, feeling the caffeine hit her system like a small electric shock. Outside the window, the sky is finally lightening. The deep black of night has given way to deep blue, and she can see the mountains now, dark shapes against the slowly brightening horizon. The street lamps are still on, but they're competing with natural light now, their yellow glow less necessary with each passing minute. 7 o'clock. She flips the sign on the door from closed to open, unlocks the door and waits. She doesn't have to wait long. The first customer is always Thomas, who works at the post office and stops by every morning for a baguette and a coffee before his shift. He pushes through the door right at 7, bringing a gust of cold air with him, and grins when he sees the full display case. "Morning, Maya," he says, his breath still fogging in the warmth of the bakery. "Busy morning?" "Every morning," she says, already reaching for a baguette. She knows his order by heart. "Coffee?" "Please, large." She pours the coffee into a paper cup, adds the splash of cream he likes, slides it across the counter with the bread wrapped in paper. He pays, leaves a generous tip in the jar, and disappears back into the morning, the door chiming softly as it closes behind him. Then comes Elena, who takes her granddaughter to school every morning and always buys a blueberry muffin for the girl and a croissant for herself. She pauses on her way out to look toward the window seat, where Olive has finally claimed her spot now that the sun is up. "There's our girl," Elena says warmly. The cat, basking in a patch of sunlight, accepts the attention as her due, purring loudly even from across the room. Then Henrik, who's a professor at the university and buys whatever looks good, which is usually everything. Then a young couple Maya doesn't recognize, tourists probably, who order cappuccinos and chocolate chip cookies and sit at one of the small tables. They immediately notice Olive and ask if they can take her picture. "Of course," Maya says. The cat poses obligingly in her sunny window, clearly understanding that she's the star of the show. The morning unfolds in this rhythm. Customers coming and going, the display case slowly emptying, the coffee pots needing to be refilled. Maya works the counter with easy efficiency, making change, pulling pastries from the case, operating the espresso machine. She knows most of her customers by name, knows their orders, asks about their families and their work. This is village life, this knowing and being known, and it's one of the things she loves most about her choice to move here. By 9 o'clock, the rush has slowed. The display case is about half empty, which is perfect. She doesn't want to run out before the day is over, but she doesn't want excess either. The young couple has left, but a few other customers have settled in with books or laptops, taking advantage of the warm space and the good coffee and the lingering smell of fresh bread. Maya makes herself another coffee, a latte this time, something gentle and milky, and takes a moment to stand at the window, looking out at the village square. The sun is fully up now, bright winter light making everything sharp and clear. The mountains are brilliant against the blue sky, their peaks white with snow. People are moving through the square now, going about their daily business, the pharmacy opening across the way, the butcher hanging sausages in his window, children in bright coats being walked to school. This is why she came here, this slower pace, this sense of being part of something, this work that she can see and touch and smell. In the city, she'd worked in an office, pushing papers and sending emails and attending meetings that could have been emails. At the end of the day, she'd had nothing to show for her time except a vague sense of exhaustion and a paycheck that never seemed like quite enough for the life she was living. Here, at the end of the day, she has empty display cases and satisfied customers and flour dust in her hair. She has the particular ache in her shoulders that comes from kneading dough, the burn in her feet from standing on stone floors. She has the smell of bread in her clothes and yeast under her fingernails. She has something real. The morning continues its gentle progression. More customers trickle in and out. A mother with a toddler buys chocolate chip cookies and lets the child pick out a cupcake. An elderly man Maya knows only as Mr. Bergstrom buys a loaf of bread and tucks it carefully into his shopping bag, chatting with her about the weather, about the snow that's predicted for later in the week. A group of teenagers bursts in during what must be their break from school, loud and energetic, buying an absurd number of cookies between them. One of them asks if they can pet Olive, and Maya nods toward the window seat. The cat tolerates the attention with remarkable patience, even allowing one girl to take a selfie with her. When they leave, Olive stretches, yawns hugely, and settles back into her sunbeam, unbothered by the disruption. The customers love her, Maya thinks, admiring the cat from the counter. They ask about her, bring her treats sometimes, take photos. Some people, Maya suspects, come to the bakery as much for Olive as for the bread. And she doesn't mind at all. By noon, the case is nearly empty. Just a few loaves of bread left, a handful of cookies, a couple of lonely cupcakes. Maya could bake more. There's time and there's dough in the cooler. But she doesn't. This is enough. Tomorrow she'll bake it all again. And the day after that. And the day after that. The work is repetitive, but it's never boring. Every loaf is slightly different. Every day brings different customers, different conversations, different small moments of connection. She makes herself a sandwich from yesterday's bread. It's still good, maybe even better than when it was fresh, and eats it standing at the counter, looking out the window. The square is busy now, people shopping and meeting friends for lunch, the village fully awake and going about its life. She's part of this now, woven into the fabric of this place. Maya the baker, the woman who makes the bread. The afternoon will be quieter. A few more customers will trickle in, buying bread for dinner or sweets for afternoon coffee. She'll start the dough for tomorrow, weighing flour and water and salt, mixing and kneading and setting it to rise. She'll clean the kitchen, wash the endless accumulation of bowls and pans and utensils. She'll wipe down the counters and sweep the floors and check her supplies, making a list of what she needs to order. And then, when the last customer has gone and the winter darkness has returned, she'll flip the sign back to "closed" and lock the door. She'll gather Olive from her window seat, and the cat will complain about leaving her warm spot, but will settle into Maya's arms readily enough. Maya will tuck Olive back into her coat for the walk home, feeling the cat's warmth against her chest as they navigate the cold streets together. Back at her apartment, she'll feed Olive her dinner, then shower away the flour dust and make herself a simple meal. She'll sit by the window with a book and Olive purring in her lap, looking out at the village with its street lamps glowing warm against the darkness. Tomorrow she'll wake at 4 in the morning and do it all again. And the day after that. And the day after that. The same work over and over. The repetition that some people would find stultifying, but that Maya finds deeply satisfying. There's a peace in it, a rightness, that she never found in her old life. She finishes her sandwich and brushes the crumbs from her hands. Through the window, she sees the sun beginning its descent toward the mountains, the light already taking on that golden quality that means afternoon is fading toward evening. The day is passing, as days do, each moment giving way to the next. But for now, there's still work to do. There's always work to do. And Maya doesn't mind at all. She turns from the window, back to the warm kitchen, back to the flour and the yeast and the endless, satisfying rhythm of making bread. This is her life now. And it's enough. More than enough. It's everything.